Okay, what do we have here? Okay, Richard, I can see you. How you doing, Richard? It's nice to see you. Okay, Dan, I've sent you. Okay. Okay, I've had a Prof now. How this goes through. Yes, I finally got Prof. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good, and you?
I'm hanging in there, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, how is the family, sir?
Oh, we are good. We are good. Great.
I I quickly want to say a big thank you to you for you know for always available to
Yeah,
for your availability at all time to mentor us and also share your expertise with the public. Your skill, your expertise, your strength is what we all need. Experience is what we cannot buy. You just have to
it
go
looks
through
like
the book.
I'm off again. Send me the invite again.
No, I can see you. Can you see me?
I see you. Yes. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yes, I can see you and hear you loud and clear, Prof.
Okay. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, Prof.
Okay. 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 Then that's fine.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, what I I want to say, but let me do this again. I need you to bring down the camera a bit so that we can see your face, sir. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's what I'm trying to get myself together because let me get to.
Okay,
I
let
need
me
to
give you
have
2
my
minutes.
because I'm working from my phone. So let
Okay.
me get it. Well. Yeah, I don't have a lot of time because I have a seminar tomorrow, a webinar
Okay. Okay.
that I'm trying to put my, prepare. We have
Okay.
a webinar with most of the government agencies in agriculture. So we're talking about agribusiness tomorrow. So we've
Yes,
got the
I saw
presidency.
I
Okay, I
saw
think
the
you saw this thing. Yeah, the
yeah,
flyer.
I saw the poster online. What is that all about, Prof?
Okay, so one of the things that happens whenever there is an economic crisis is food crisis. If you will cast your mind back in 07, 08, after the global financial meltdown, which was triggered by the subprime crisis, mortgage lending crisis in the US. So I think 2008, 09, peaking in about 2010, there was a huge international spike in food
Okay.
prices. So if
Okay.
you look at the food inflation went out of this world. And then if you look at the FAO food price index, it was extremely high.
Okay.
So before it started declining around 2012. So, and the situation we have witnessed currently is a lot worse than what was experienced in 07, 08. So this is not just like I was saying the other day that it's not an economic crisis. So this is a health crisis that triggered an economic disruption. So and then in addition to that, we now have the lockdown. So the lockdown, we know that it affected so many things, including the logistic. logistics, of course. You know that agriculture is heavily dependent on transportation, movement, on logistics. So with the lockdown, it means that you wouldn't have both international and local movement, of transportation was brought to a halt. So for Nigeria, let's take rice for instance. Okay, Nigerians consume a lot of so much. I think that should be about 80 billion tons of rice or so. I hope I don't get it wrong. So 57% of what we consume is produced locally. Okay,
50%,
I'm looking at
right?
rice, talking about rice alone. 57% of the rice consumption in Nigeria is locally made.
Okay.
Now, which means the balance of 43% has to be imported from countries like Thailand and all of that. So with the lockdown in movements in logistics, so it means that we can expect to have that a shortfall made from outside. Okay, the importation will be hampered. Local production also, internal movement has been curtailed significantly. Now, if we also factor in that farmers may also be restricted from going to farm, so we have a crisis that is sitting, waiting to explode. So local production cannot happen because of the lockdown. Then the international importation also has been hampered considerably. So we can't expect to get anything from outside Nigeria, and we can also produce locally. I'm talking about rice alone. So that means we are facing a very serious food shortage, which may lead to wide-scale starvation. I don't want to talk about the impact that will have on prices, because the prices will be out of this world. Already in March, the latest figures on inflation point to inflation level of 12.5%. So food inflation is even higher, even though the headline inflation had been falling all this while. But we realized that food inflation had always been high. So part of the reason was the devaluation in our exchange rates, which made it cheaper for neighboring countries to actually be taking rice and grains from outside Nigeria. So that meant that the food inflation, the price of grains had been significantly higher than the core inflation rate, so which drove the headline inflation high. So if you put all this together, then it means that we are facing a very serious threat. So based on that, LBS, we are getting together participants, because we have also one of the most will I say, selling agribusiness management programs. Okay. So, and we produce so many people who are into large scale farming, in different dimensions. So we want to bring them together, private sector, and get the government policymakers involved in agriculture. We have the Bank of Industry, we have the Bank of Agriculture, we have the Federal Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. We've got people from the presidency, we've got NISA, we've got CBN. So we have all these people who will be tuning in. And in fact, we've confirmed the participation of the governor of Kebbi State. Okay, he wants to make a presentation as well. So we have some ministers who will be participating. And then we've got head of parastatals, and then some commissioners of agriculture and development from the states who will also be tuning in tomorrow. So it's going to be a high-level event. I'm going to moderate that session. So in addition to moderating, I will be speaking on a cluster-based agribusiness management framework and the role of public-private partnerships. So while I'm trying to explore the how PPP can help to unlock some of the potential that we have in agriculture. Already we have different schemes.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, Prof. If this sounds very robust and it sounds promising, you know, the way you have tendered this position tomorrow, would this conference be held online?
Yes, it's on Zoom. So
Okay.
we're starting at 10 o'clock. I think I
Okay.
also put the login information on my Facebook page.
Okay, so people can log in and be part of
Yes,
this
anyone can
conference?
log in. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then what I will also ask is that you can also send those materials to me privately so I can push it out for the facilitators as well and see if we can have more people that will log in and listen to the conference. But let me take a quick
so you can have it from crop it from my my timeline on Facebook is there.
Okay.
But I will send it to you privately as well.
Yeah, let me take you from where you started from, talking about policies, you know, and I'm going to ask you a few questions about policy as we speak. I really don't have an idea of the agricultural policy as of today, but I'm going to find out from you. What has been the policy of food production as a country, talking about Nigeria? Because why I'm asking that is because the economy has been a mono revenue economy, you know, talking about the oil, you know, and suddenly, you know, in fact, what you said this afternoon, you know, gladdens my heart that we've been able to achieve 57% rice. Is it production or consumption?
Well, production and consumption. I mean, 57% of consumption is locally fed.
Okay, that means, in other words, we've been
57%
able to manage.
of our rice consumption is from the domestic production.
Okay, that's good. So what that means is it sounds like a good news for me anyway, because we're above average. What has been responsible for food shortage and the insensitiveness of the federal government to focus more on agricultural produce and work in pari passu with the oil sector? Because I don't know if you agree with me that. Are you there? Are you there, Prof? Are you there? Are you there? Are you back? Yeah.
I'm using my phone.
Okay, sir. You're welcome back. So, did you get my question, sir?
Can you hear me? I can't hear you again.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I
Can you
can't hear
hear me?
you.
Okay, I think you need to unmute. I think you need to unmute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Still, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, but I can't hear you from your end.
What about now? You still can't hear me? You still can't hear me?
Can you?
Can you hear me?
Maybe you need to invite me again. Let me.
Okay.
You can cancel this and re-invite me. I don't know where the problem is from.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I don't know if did you get my last question? Did you get my question?
Not clearly.
Okay, I said.
Okay. So yes. So you were concerned about why government hasn't quite pushed the agricultural sector the way
Exactly.
of oil and gas.
Yes, you said something very amazing to me. You said 57% of production and consumption is done locally, and that's for me. Sincerely, I never had such figure that we've really done so well to do 57% of rice production in the country. Most times what I think of, and I'm sure most people think that it's all on paper. Most times when federal government says things, we all believe that this is just a gimmick. It's not real. But hearing from you this afternoon that 57% of what we do as regards rice has been done locally. So my question is, can you take us on a ride in 2 minutes on the agricultural policy, that is operable in that country as we speak?
Okay, let's start from the contribution to GDP. The non oil contribution to GDP has been rising over the past, say, 10 years. Let's say, especially in the last 6 years. So currently, the largest contributor to GDP is actually agriculture. Yes, it is not the highest gross, it's not the most grossing when it comes to foreign exchange. It's still oil. Oil still contributes above 80% to our foreign exchange earnings. But agriculture is making inroads as well. As I speak to you, there is a huge demand for Nigeria's sesame seed and so many other grains. So
Okay.
we've been exporting agricultural produces, and a lot of that started, after the agricultural transformation agenda of the Jonathan's administration, which this administration inherited, and then also they've been, expanded it in a number of ways. So, which I will try to enunciate. Okay, so maybe you would have overheard me in any one of the media or fora speaking about the central bank's attitude or behavior of using monetary policy tools to, treating every economic or developmental problem as a monetary policy issue. So now it has its own drawback, but it has also some advantages. Well, some, will I say, positive outcome. Now, we realize, okay, the central bank has pushed the agricultural agenda, giving it a lot of push in the past few years, starting with the bankers committee that required banks to set aside 5% of their profit, I think profit before tax, or profit after tax, sorry, 5% of all of their profit after tax, and put it as a part of what they call, I will remember that the name, with the CBN. So this money are domiciled within the center, and it is used to incentivize investment in agribusiness. Now, agribusiness seems to be broadly defined, not just in agriculture, but you have also processing, across the agricultural or agribusiness value chain. So, which will encompass wood products, some bit of mining, manufacturing, and all of that. Anything that have impact on consumption. So usually we classify it as agriculture. So the CBN now allocates this 5% contribution from all the banks in Nigeria to agriculture. So they have, in the last 10 years, we also have the incentive-based risk sharing mechanism, the NISAL. Okay, so we know about NISAL, which is one of the incentives the government is using to promote agricultural investment. So within that, there are a lot of schemes. Now, is part of the incentives. So we have a set of incentive mechanisms. We have equipment leasing, we have land clearing, we have ad grower, we have cluster-based agriculture systems, and we have the agro value chain, which is studied. It's part of the things that part of the achievement of the agricultural transformation agenda of Jonathan's administration by partitioning the geographical regions into their various agricultural, competitive products. So what they call as one state OSOP or something, one state, one product.
That's true.
So, okay, so we know about the one state, one product. So they've been pushing that. And then the CBN embarked in the last 3 years or 4 years. So they set up what they call enterprise development institutes or enterprise development centers in the geopolitical regions, whose briefs were to train smallholder farmers, artisans on basic, business, agribusiness skills. And once they're able to, they are certified to have undergone those training, and they are made, they become eligible to access some of the grants or low interest funds that the CBN distribute through its development finance officers in all the states of the federation. Okay, now I don't want to talk about whether it's been efficiently done or not, but these are part of the schemes that the government has used to promote agriculture. So we've seen so many people getting a lot of those funding, although there's still a huge complaint among farmers and people who want to get into farming that they have not found it easy getting access to such funding. But the truth of the matter remains that there's a huge catch of fund with the central bank under the bankers committee, okay, which provides about a maximum of 9% interest lending that individual farmers could get up to 10 million naira at 9% interest rates. Then for established businesses, big farms or big manufacturers, they could get up to 2 billion naira. I know people who have gotten up to 3 billion from that fund. So there is also the cluster-based Anchor Borrower Scheme. Yes, the Anchor Borrower Scheme. The Anchor Borrower Scheme is part of the incentives that the CBN or the government has also introduced. So the Anchor Borrowers is that, people are giving loans to embark on farming, and then there is also a guaranteed market. So the kind of an ad grower repurchase. So guaranteed market for whatever it is they produce. And that's part of the rationale for the cluster-based farming. You know that more than 85%, in fact 90% of farming and agricultural practices in Nigeria, or agricultural production, is the smallholder farmers. So individuals using their families to farm their lands. So they have very small land holding. So meaning that when it comes to efficiency in production, you can't get that. So the only way you can get them to become efficient is if you're able to agglomerate or cluster them in, so either you have regional or spatial clustering, or you have a product clustering. So if you have the regional or spatial clustering, so you will have farmers who will co-locate within a certain region. Now, government supports that by giving them land clearing funds. Now, this that the CBN delivers to states. So if the states is up to 2 billion naira for land clearing for each farm cluster settlement. So that's kind of a revitalization of the farm settlements of the olden days that we knew about under the national industrial, the old development plans. Okay, we used to have the farm settlements all across the nation. So it's a kind of a modernized version of that. So you have clusters. Now, the rationale for clusters is that you are able to agglomerate. So meaning that you can consolidate production so that there is scale. And then scale means that you can meet industrial demands. So you now have guaranteed market, because that's also part of what the schemes promote. So you have the end users, the manufacturers, the producers, okay, the agro processing firms, who give the farmers guarantee of a market. So what do you call that? They are out, so they are off-takers of what the farms produce. So these are some of the schemes that the government had, promoted in the past few years to ensure that we ramp up our agricultural our food production, essentially. To the best of my knowledge, and that is where we are heading to.
Okay, let me quickly come in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, let me quickly do this for people that are just watching and asking me a few questions on my WhatsApp. That who am I speaking with? I've been talking to an economist, someone that has been there for decades, trying to mentor the upcoming generation on how to build businesses. Talking about Professor Bongo Adi of Lagos Business School, Pan University, a lecturer and a facilitator as we speak. I've been opportune to learn under him, and I can tell you he's one of the mentor that shaped us to this level. So, in case you are wondering, who am I talking to? I've been speaking with Professor Bongo Adi. Professor, let me take you back with what you said. Most times when I speak, when I have the opportunity to talk with you, after the discussion, I go back and I think about everything you said, and I try to see if I can take all of it into me. But quick one, you said that agriculture is next to oil as we speak, that after oil is agriculture as the country stands. Then you also talked about that Jonathan started the campaign, of agriculture before the present administration, But one thing you said that I really want you to deep into it. You said there are so many schemes. In your own language, you said it does not really matter if there is efficiency or not. That's for me, that's worrisome. You said 9% interest rate, that's awesome. But the line that you said that it doesn't really matter if those schemes are efficient or not because there are so many schemes. And looking from where I'm talking from, it's so funny that it is efficiency that runs the economy here. When the government says, like for example, they actually approved what is it called, a cash program for young SMEs in the state, and those funds are accountable. You can't take those funds and not be accountable for those funds, and that's where efficiency comes in. But if you say efficiency does not matter, it's worrisome because we can keep spending billions of naira and we can't see it. And that's the reason why we have so many schemes that you've mentioned that we can't see the genuineness, the positive effect of this scheme on an ordinary farmer on the street. Does it bother you that don't you think
Yeah,
efficiency
okay.
is what should have been put in place before establishing these schemes? Because the money will come, people will take the money, and you can't see the money.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting question. Yes, I think you are digging deep into the matter. You didn't allow me to finish what I was saying the other time, because when I say that I do not know. Now, before, I was delving into what I call the evidence-based to match policy side of the conversation that I was having earlier. Why I said I do not know, I can't vouch for the efficiencies because there has not been, to the best of my knowledge, okay? So you may blame me as a researcher, as an academic, why haven't we, initiated some research to study the efficiency of all these schemes? anyway, it's still not late. It's something that we need to do. Now, until we have the evidence, we cannot tell you that, okay, all these things, all the various schemes that the government has introduced, that they have actually yielded the desired results. I can't tell you that, because the next thing, like when I told you that I like to cite statistics, I like to give data, but when I don't have data, then it's actually I'm hampered on what I can put out as a statement. Now, research is something that has not been taken seriously anywhere in Nigeria. We like to speak grammar, we like to talk glibly about everything. But then when it comes to data, like it is said that the devil is in the details. So I like the details, and you know me very well. I'm a data person, I'm an economist. So if I don't have the detail, it becomes very difficult for me to get to any conclusive positions. Okay, so for instance, in the question regarding those lending schemes, okay, the anchor borrower scheme or the other ones, there are several. So there will be some parameters, and all these things were stated, by the way, in the standard operating processes of all those schemes, because the bankers committee, the banks cannot give you money for free, right? So they were made, all the key performance indicators were outlined, so what the measures of success were also outlined. So we need to look at all those things to see if they've been met. So, and then there is supposed to be a very strong M&E system, monitoring and evaluation system, to to keep track of what is going on in all these programs. Now, I haven't seen the result of all those monitoring and evaluation programs. I don't know if they have happened. So that's why I said that I don't know about the efficiency, because you get a lot of complaints from so many people. Now, the major complaint that we get is that the allocation and distribution of some of the NIRSAL, N-I-R-S-A-L, the NIRSAL funds, seems to be some kind of some lopsided, that it seems to favor some geographical regions and not others. And I can tell you that because I've seen some, I can tell you there was a time I saw the data on people who applied for NIRSAL funds. Okay, they seem to be concentrated in certain geographical region and not others. So that's what I mean by efficiency. Again, we do not know how many people who have applied and how many people who got it. Are the ones who got the monies, the funds, are real farmers? Okay, and then we also know that when it comes to Anchor Borrowers Program, I don't know if you have been following the news in Nigeria. They are having problem recovering most of the loans they've given out. So part of the efficiency will be that government invests 10 million in a farmer to produce yam. So you want to know at the end of the day how many yam came to the market from this farmer. So not 10 million for the farmer. At the end of the year, the person cannot account for a 500,000 naira worth of yam. That's not efficiency. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. Again,
okay, okay, Prof.
Research, we need to go back to, again, so research is something that has not been prioritized in Nigeria. We need to track all these things. We need to track all these mechanisms to see whether they are working or not, because it is from that that we will know what has gone wrong, and then gather information, enough data, that we bring into the lab to now know how we can redesign and improve upon what we are doing. Until that has happened, then it's difficult for me to say whether it is efficient or not. But I can clearly tell you the government is doing this and that because it's on paper. We know that it's happening. And I can tell you that this and this bank, okay, are the on lending, because those are on lending schemes. So the CBN gives it to the banks at certain level, 5%. So the banks are supposed to top no more than 4%. So the loans are supposed to reach the recipient at no more than 9%. So it's an on lending scheme. So we need to approach the banks to see how successful they have been in administering those funds. Right now, I don't have the data, so I can't say what I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Prof. By the virtue of what I do, I'm actually exposed to some information, and that will take me back to one of the schemes, that was done by the last administration called UWIN. I don't know if you.
Of course, I know about UWIN,
Yeah,
yes.
UWIN, and while on my show, I was on a show in Ibadan, Oyo State, Lagos, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and after my show in Lagos, and Ibadan, I had few calls. Put together, I had like 19 calls because I dealt on the show. I dealt on the UWIN project, and I called people to talk to me about it, the visibility and the sincerity of the scheme. But it's so sad. It's so sad that 19 private calls I got on that after my show. 11 out of the 19 calls, they actually confessed without mentioning names. They actually told me in confidence that they got the money, they got the funds, and they did all the due diligence on them, got the funds. The least person that got the funds got 6 million naira, and as I speak to you right now, those 11 people that got the fund knew in their mind that they were not going to do agriculture, knew before applying for those funds that they had nothing interesting to do on agriculture. So they actually went in there, got the sureties, applied for the loan, got the money, and went away and left the country and went away with the funds. So my question still boils down to the issue of data, the issue of processing, the issue of due diligence, and this, I'm going to make an emphasis on how it works from this shore of this country. There is no way you get access to funds. You want to do agriculture, you want to do IT, there's no way you can get those funds and not do what exactly you have applied for. There is no way. This is how it works. Before, it sounds to me as if the Nigerian banks will deliberately give you the funds because the federal government has insured the funds. If you pay back, the money will still come back to the banks. If you don't pay back, the bank will still secure their money to the federal government as probably there is an invisible surety on the funds given out to the public. So it bothers me that the inside manipulation, I'm sorry to say this, the inside manipulation of this scheme, that people can access loans and not pay back, is actually originated from the banking sector. Because if a bank will give you money and there is a clearer ways of getting their money back, of course, they're not going to give you the money and just allow you to go and not tell you to pay back. So it's worrisome for me that I will let you talk now. That how do we get this scheme right? It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 of scheme, 2,000 schemes, 1,000 schemes, given out the same people that has access to these funds during Obasanjo era, Jonathan era, also have the same access to this scheme at this present administration.
Yeah, that's where the problem is. But okay, let me start from I don't want to let's look at it from a scientific point of view. Okay, what I mean by that is that there are some this is not the first time this sort of mechanism, we call it a mechanism design, is to be implemented in a developing country. So there are things we talk about. We have what we call whenever there is a targeting. Okay, in this case we have funds targeted at farmers. Okay, so the intention is that you will have genuine farmers who will come to apply for the funds, and when they get it, they will really allocate it for the right use, for the purpose for which the fund was allocated to them in the first place. Okay, so, but usually, anywhere in the world, even in the United States, you will have what we call errors of targeting. Now, there is a type 1 error, there is a type 2 error. Now, the type 1 error is that, something like in statistics, right? When you do hypothesis test, so you know about the type 1 error and the type 2 error, right? So rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually true, or accepting it when it is false. So those are the type 1, type 2 error. Now, under targeting, there is the type 1 error whereby those who are not intended to get the funds end up getting the fund. That's type 1 error. Mr. A is not a farmer. He's not supposed to apply for the fund, but eventually he's the one that gets the fund. That's a leakage. Then you have the second error, which is another form of leakage, which is Mr. A or Mr. B is a farmer, genuine farmer. He needs the money, and if you give him the funds, the convertibility, the conversion rate is high. He will allocate it to farming, and then he will fill the market with products the next season. But he doesn't get the money. So the wrong guy gets the money, the right guy doesn't get the money. We have type 1, type 2 errors of targeting. That's science. It happens every time. So in that sense, I don't want to agree with you that it's all that bad. Yes, there are some farmers who've gotten the money, and then who are using it for farming. That takes me back to what I said earlier. We expect that these errors will be there. And whenever you design a scheme like this in developing countries, where you know that people are poor, and then in climates where corruption is also rife, you need to create allowances for regular review, monitoring and evaluation, research, gathering knowledge, gathering data, gathering information. Just as you commit money to farmers, on lending to banks, banks lend to the individual farmers. You needed also to empower some researchers, some academic institutions whose job will be to monitor the progress of this scheme. Because if you don't have that, then you will end up, it will be like a west, a west pipe. And that's what, might likely happen. Now, supposing that we now get to the point where we review this, midterm or end term, whatever, get monitoring and evaluation specialists, deploy them into the field, they look at what has happened. Who got the money? What did they do with it? And then look at the banks. And then, of course, I don't also agree, banks, because when the central bank lends to the banks, the money is off the balance sheet of the central bank. The risk is now with the bank, the commercial bank, who has to lend out the money. But now, this is because of a concessional rate. They don't have to go the full, the prime lending rate or the commercial rate. So they give it out at the CBN stipulated rate of no more than single digits. That's 9% is the maximum. So the banks lends to farmers. Now, the banks carry this on their balance sheet. It is their responsibility, to pursue the farmers to ensure that they pay back. And to tell you that the intention may have been good, because for anybody to qualify to receive the loans from the banks, the person must have gone through some training. The training is supposed to be administered by the Enterprise Development Institutes, as I mentioned earlier, who certify that the person has gotten knowledge in the particular field or area that the person wants to go into in agriculture. Is it fishery or piggery or whatever, snairy or whatever? So once the person is certified to be competent, the person uses the certificate of eligibility to go to the bank to receive the funding. So you can see that the processes are well laid out. Now, but the problem is, these are not schemes that can work on their own. We talked about guaranteed markets. Yes, you can guarantee the farmers market, Have you guaranteed them irrigation in their farms? Have you guaranteed other inputs? Have you also guaranteed transportation and logistics? So there are so many other complementary systems that need to be in place to ensure that we have the result that we desire. Because if we don't have those complementarities, then eventually you may not get the desired outcome. And that's what happens in many cases.
Who should put this mechanism
Again,
of monitoring in place? Is it the bank or the federal government or the CBN?
Now, okay, this is a scheme. We have to look at it end to end. So it's not a matter of central bank or bank. Since it is a scheme, call it Anchor Borrowers Program, for example. So that is Anchor Borrowers Program. So anyone that's the central bank or the Federal Ministry of Agriculture or whoever is involved in administering this scheme must ensure that they also create, while they are instituting the scheme, they also establish a proper, rigorous monitoring and evaluation system that will complement what they are doing to ensure that you understand what the farmers are going through, understand where they have problems, and then troubleshoot it so that you can always get your desired results. So, but what normally happens is that in many cases, there will always be some gaps. And whenever there is a gap, you know that the chain is as strong as its weakest link. So that is why we do not usually get the expected outcome. But in terms of intention, in terms of the principle, it is what you can expect anywhere else in the world. But then I cannot tell you that it's a failure, it's not. Okay, so given this period, what we need to do is to review what has been happening. Okay, because this is something that the banks are mandated to do every year. So it's an accumulation of funds each year. Now, there is also a possibility of an incentive here, because if there is no proper monitoring and evaluation, you know, a proper system to forestall any sort of moral hazard in the sense that when people know that this is money that will be coming every year, so they will learn how to come back to the banks to get the same money, knowing that they're not going to be paying, right? So there is this. So we can never downplay or underestimate the role of monitoring and evaluation, and the regular review and revision of the programs to understand what the problems are, and then to mitigate them properly and timely.
Okay,
that is the only way we can guarantee to get the results that we want.
Okay, Prof. In 25 minutes we should be out of here. Quick one. That takes me to my next question. Let's talk about industries and unemployment in the country. You know, as we speak, we have so many sectors. We have the banking sector, we have the manufacturing sector, we have the construction sector, we have the media sector. You know, all of these sectors. Let me tailor it down. Which of this sector is the largest employment of labor as we speak, in looking at it globally and taking it back to Nigeria? Which of this sector employs more?
You mean in Nigeria or?
That's why I said let's take a look at the Nigerian perspective and a global perspective.
You know, when it comes to the global perspective, the highest employer of labor will be manufacturing sector.
Okay, then when it comes to Nigeria,
the manufacturing sector. Why do I tell you that? Because for a country such as China or India, okay, so while you've got many companies, many factories locating in those countries, is because they are always in search of labor, cheap labor, right? So, yeah. And again, compared to more capital-intensive production, labor-intensive production systems are usually cheaper. Okay, so cheaper. So every corporate, every factory, every manufacturer would like to go to where the labor is cheap, and then we like to use more labor-intensive systems, and that's what you find in China.
Okay, let's go with the manufacturing. Where are we in Nigeria as regards manufacturing sector?
Okay, so to speak about manufacturing, the first thing is that in 2016 we were in recession. The manufacturing sector went into recession. Even though we are showing signs of life before the coronavirus pandemic, manufacturing has not yet recovered from that recession of 2016. So we're talking about 4 years now. The manufacturing sector has been underperforming. Now, why is that the case? The reason why the manufacturing sector, so when we talk about manufacturing, we talk about productivity. So when there's what we call the total factor productivity. In Africa, Nigeria has one of the worst total factor productivities. So what it means is that in terms of production efficiency, okay, production efficiency means the ease at which you can combine labor and capital to produce output. So let's say, definition of productivity, that's output per unit of labor. So if you define it that way, so per unit of labor, our output in Nigeria is lowest in Africa. So why is that the case? Because of, again, I spoke about complementary systems. It may interest you to know that it is actually cheaper to produce in the UK than to produce in Nigeria.
Really?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so UK has one of the highest production, the costless production systems, but they are still cheaper compared to Nigeria. So you can imagine that. So why would you move your factory from the UK to Nigeria, even though we have abundance of labor? But we it's still more expensive. Why? Of course, you have to provide your own infrastructure. I don't want to go into the issue of multiple taxation because that's a different thing altogether. So you have to provide your own infrastructure.
Okay, talking about infrastructure, Prof. And this is a very big one. It's one of my bullet points I have to tweet after this conversation. I talk that it's cheaper for a manufacturer to produce in the UK than to produce in Nigeria. That's terrible. It's terrible for the country. Why I'm saying it's terrible is because we have the human resource. We have human capital we are 180 million population. And we also know about some of the some of the facilities or the terms needed to have a good manufacturing environment, like the power, talking about electricity, like the funding, like the manpower. All of this we feel we have. What we don't have is the power. That's electricity, and it's one of the major problems that any manufacturer have. Oh, I lost you. Guess I have to invite you back. Okay, we lost Prof. I guess we can still bring him back. Okay. Let's be able to bring him back. Let's see. Because the connection is, we have connection issue. Hopefully not from here, but from the largest black nation on earth. Okay, we're trying to get signals. I hope we can sign in again. If not, then we have to call it a day. But let's see if we can still get him. Okay, we're trying to add him. Okay. We did that. Okay, I guess. Okay, that's all we definitely can take on the job show today. I will try much as possible to be alive again to come live to you tomorrow at same time. But before I get on live, I will tweet about it and put it on Facebook what time I'm coming on live so that we can also have issue discussed as regards the country, as regards unemployment, as regards policies and the COVID-19 as we find ourselves as a global village. Abimbola Adewale is my name. This is the Job Show International. So in case you want to reach me, of course, you can always reach me via my email, thejobshowafrica@gmail.com. You can also send me a private message. I will reply you in case you need my number. I will also give you my number that you can also. Okay, I guess. Okay, I guess Prof is coming in back. Let's find out. Okay. You're back, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for creating the time to telling my viewers that we lost you and we try much as possible to talk to you after the show. But before we go, I was talking about one of the disturbing statements you made, for me as a person, is that you never talked about China, that is cheaper to produce in China. You never talked about Malaysia. You talked about one of the most difficult currency to come by. That's talking about pounds economy, that is cheaper for you to produce in a pounds economy than in a naira economy. I still can't put it together. I can't. It's unmeasurable for me. And I was wondering why you said it's cheaper for me as a manufacturer in the UK than it's much cheaper compared to be a manufacturer in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
worrisome.
that's the reality. Yeah, that's the reality. I'm not making it up. You can go do your research. I consult for the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Before this lockdown, we were about to start. They approved a 5-year program of engagement with us at LBS to help them with policies, environmental scanning analysis and all of that. Helping them also to engage with government on their areas of for the manufacturers. So I understand what the issues are when it comes to manufacturing in Nigeria.
Do
So
you think
that's
power is a key player in this submission, in this
of
statement?
course power is a key player. Power is number one. Then logistics is number two. Then we keep talking about we keep talking about human capital. We actually do not have human capital. Okay, so now let me give you.
What
Well,
if we
we've got
don't have
labor.
if we don't have
We
human
have labor.
capital? If we don't have
We
human
have
capital,
labor.
we have a
We have
workforce
labor.
of.
Yeah, you talk about human capital is different from labor. Human capital, by definition, it means that you have competent workforce, people who have the relevant skills.
What
Okay.
does China have? Labor or human capital?
Oh, China has human capital.
Not labor.
If you set up factory in China, you will get the people to man the machines. You don't need to train them. Okay, you don't need to invest so much in training. Okay, I can give you. Okay, there are so many cases on this that I can refer you to. You probably know Tolaram.
Okay.
Tolaram, they are the producers of Indomie. It's a conglomerate.
Yeah.
Okay, Tolaram is not listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but it's one of the most valuable companies in Nigeria today and the largest employers of labor. Okay, they're everywhere. As Dangote is expanding, they are also expanding. Now, they do not like anybody to compare them with Dangote. You know, they frown at that because they have a different business model. But when you look at it, if you begin to dissect their business and their operations, you will notice that there are so many similarities. Why? Because they kind of they deal with businesses or segments in which they can massively accumulate scale. So they work on scale. So look at Indomie, for instance. They have something that everybody, like in Nigeria, the noodle, we don't call it noodle, we call it Indomie. So that will tell you something about the ubiquity of their products. And that's their corporate strategy. So when you sit at any family sit at table to eat, they are consuming their products. Today they have they have diversified into so many things, including palm plantation. Okay, so they have integrated palm plantation in Nigeria. They have the what do you call it? The palm mill. I mean, a refinery in their palm plantation. So yeah, I think it started operating now. So okay, so why am I talking about them? You notice that the reason for their success, and that tells you, and also that's a strategy for any business to survive in Nigeria. You need to have scale. And in order to scale, you need a lot of money. Okay, so Indomie, Tolaram, they are in different sectors. Okay, so how have they been able to do that? Now, they noticed that, when they started importing, they started by importing Indomie noodle into Nigeria before they set up their plants, along Ota or so. Now, when they set up that plant, they now have to buy all the inputs. The wheat had to come. So, but they noticed that each time, over the years, there were so many disappointments. They learn by doing, they learn from experience. In terms of quality, our local people could not meet the qualities that they needed. So what do? They will now integrate that segment of the business they will incorporate it, bring it into their firm. Okay? So eventually, they have so diversified, vertically integrated, horizontally integrated, that they now have their own logistics. Now, what they are planning right now is also to get into the endpoint retailing, such that they're going to have their own kiosk where people will be selling their products. So not selling in the open market. So you could see that they've been able to knock out all manner of obstacles to their businesses. Wherever they find any part of the chain that is giving them any problem, over time they will integrate it. Okay, so they have their own logistics company within. No, so I can give you so many instances. Now, if you go to Presco is one of the leading one of the leading Nigerian oil plantations. The first to have an integrated palm plantation, because they have a refinery, they have a plantation. So the feedstock, the fresh palm bunches, they harvest from their own plantations. Okay, so they also have outgrower schemes. But then you notice that they control the palm, they own the palm plantation, they own the logistics. Okay, so they structure it in such a way that they are able to mitigate all the various risks, because there are so much risk dealing in Nigeria's operating environment. So they find a way to neutralize all of those things, and that's why they can remain profitable. So now, if you are a manufacturer, if you're a business in Nigeria, and you do not have the capacity to scale, you will not be very, very productive. You will not be very, very profitable. And over time, your margins will go down. So when I say that Nigeria is a very high cost environment, you can research it. And so you also see it orchestrated in businesses and their strategies.
And when your margin goes down, definitely you'll be out of business.
Of
it's
course.
just a matter of time. That takes me to my next. Yeah, that takes me to my next question, Prof. And this one is, I just wanted to hit it as hard as possible. You know, talking about the global economy and the effect of the aftermath of the COVID-19 to global economy. And I'm going to take you back from want to look at the recession and depression, according to you, with the last Zoom meeting we had. You know, and this takes me to, let's look at how the recession started, the years of recession. I have some data here. You know, by my record, I'm aware that 1949, we had recession too, and that happened between November 1948 to October 1949. Then we had another recession again, global recession too, in 1945, you know, between February 1945 to October 1945. Another recession again, 1937 to 1938. You know, we can keep saying that the Great Repression and Depression, you know, of 1929 to 1933. You know, let's bring it back to this generation of internet. You know, we had the recession, the recent one that we had 2016, and now we have another. I don't know if we're in recession, but you know, there are indications that there's going to be a global recession as we speak. And according to you, you said after recession, it definitely is depression. You know, so looking at all these years of recession, you know, starting from 1929 to date of 2020, you know, with your experience as an economist, which of these recession that do you think is going to be the craziest and the deadliest recession of all time? Are you looking at the health of the recession that was broken through the health sector, talking about the COVID-19, or recession of the financial mismanagement? Can you take us through and say, with this recession that we are all smelling, is it going to be a very hot one on the global economy, or is it just going to come and it will go away?
Okay. First, the thing recession, the word recession. First is business cycle. That's what we call it in economics. Business cycle. So it's normal. It's natural. So there is nothing extraordinary about recession. Even for an individual, there are times when you are very buoyant. There are some times, you know, because of investment, when you have invested your fund, so you may not have money. So it's natural. So it's nothing to be worried about. And that's the reason why you have different schools of thought in economics when it comes to how to manage recession. Some people tell you that, okay, recession is just natural. It's unavoidable. So given that, just allow it to play out. Eventually, economists will bounce out of it, and then life will continue as usual. So nothing is constant, as some philosophers say. Parmenides, he said that nothing is constant in life. Even the water you step into in a river, you know, it's not constant, because each time you step into the water, you're stepping into a different water. Anyway,
that's true.
So the only thing constant in life is change. So if you understand that, then you begin to understand recession. Now, yeah, now Karl Marx, one of the basis foundations of Marxist political economy. If you read Das Kapital, I used to be a Marxist some years back, you know, many years ago, right? So Marx reasoned that there is always this tendency for the rate of capital to come suddenly to an end every 12 years, every 10 to 12 years, so like every decade. And then based on what you have read the statistics you've read, the dates you have mentioned, you could see that it matched Karl Marx's finding. Like
That's
every
true.
decade, you have a period of recession. It's natural. So, but this case, I keep saying, we didn't get into the last Zoom meeting we had. You know, I had a disagreement with the other speakers, right? Including yourself. You didn't agree with me. So you people were saying that, yes, the economy had been mismanaged. We understand the economy was mismanaged, but we're not in recession. Yes, so many people were predicting that Nigeria's economy was going to go into recession in 2020, but then oil price hadn't dropped. So there was no, because our economy runs on oil, simple. If oil price is good, we are good. If it's not good, then we are bad. So that's it. Now, you guys were saying that, okay, the economy, the basics, the macroeconomic policy, this and that, and I said, no, yes. The managers, maybe not getting the right policies. I understand we didn't have the right buffers, but at the point we had about $46 billion as our external reserve. Okay, that could power about 6 months of imports. That's not bad. Our debt to GDP ratio was not bad. Okay, let's call a spade a spade. Of course, I'm not a proponent. I'm not a convert of GDP debt to GDP ratio. It doesn't make sense, right? Because you can't use it. Now,
it's not bad, even when the budget is on deficit and we keep borrowing to run government.
No, it's not a very bad. It's not even. Yeah. Everybody talks about that. I'm not a prophet of doom. Now, even in the US, many countries, developing countries, shouldn't have balanced budgets. Why should you even be having balanced budgets when you have so many infrastructure needs? If it's cheaper to borrow money, why can't you borrow? Okay. In fact, I can tell you that we didn't. Okay, we sort of prioritize commercial borrowing, and that's the only thing I can find wrong with what has happened in the government over the years. Supposing that they preferred equity, okay, find the ways to get investors into our stock market, into our capital market, you know, attracting capital into the system. That would have been better than commercial lending or commercial borrowing. But I don't want to talk about that. We're talking about recession. So now the recession that we are in or we are facing is not a product of economics. It wasn't because there was any deleveraging anywhere in the world. It wasn't because America's economy was bad. No. It was, you are in the United States. By January, what was unemployment rate in the United States?
3.2.
Sorry?
3.2%.
2 point something.
3.
Very low, right? 3. Right, good. The natural rate of unemployment is 5%. It was even below the natural rate. So how could an economy go into recession when our unemployment rate was 3%? So it's not an economic problem. This is a health problem. Health is how do I put it? You know, so the health situation, whatever affects human beings, then that threatens everything. And that's exactly what we have encountered. Our health, our lives became threatened, and every other thing came suddenly to a halt. The economic situation.
You, as an economist, do you think we are heading to recession, global recession, or no?
I didn't get you.
As an economist, do you think that the world is heading to a global recession? Yes or no?
The line is breaking. So let me go back to what I was saying about the recession. The recession that we are having.
We are heading to a global recession as we speak.
There's a problem with my network. I couldn't hear you.
Are we heading to global recession? Let me put this. Hold on.
Hello?
Can you see this?
It is a mirror image. I can't read it.
Oh.
It comes as a mirror image.
Okay, you can see that. Are we heading to a global recession? Yes or no?
I'm not hearing you again.
Okay, go ahead. We have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, let's give 5 minutes, then come back.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so but you can't hear me, and I've lost track of my thoughts. I was talking about global recession and.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
My own network, or the reception from your side.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, it better now. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, let me ask you, are we heading to a global recession as we speak?
Anyway, I was saying that the recession that we are facing was triggered by the health crisis. Okay, so the health crisis is a graver crisis than economics. Supposing that you are healthy and you don't have money, over time you will be okay. Okay, you have your health, so you can always work harder or do something, and then somehow over time you get back on your feet. But once your health has been compromised, hindered, you can't do anything. So that's exactly what brought the world economy to its knees overnight. So all of a sudden, we are now talking about job losses. I read from Bloomberg this morning that about 25 million people are lining up for unemployment benefits in the United States. That's massive.
30 million. 30 million.
Okay, 30 million. That would have been unthinkable in January. So now, are you going to be blaming the managers of the United States economy for that? Are you going to be blaming Trump for that? Not at all. But in Nigeria, we always like to blame the government. We cannot blame the government. I don't want to blame them. This is a health situation that caught everybody unprepared. Yes, we like to condemn. America has been exposed as unprepared. I'm not sure, from what I've read, from what I have seen in so many places, they are no better than us in many ways. I was on Channels TV the other day, they asked me this question and all of that. I said, yes, over the years, we've underinvested in the health infrastructure, in the health system. And that is why we find ourselves in a very precarious situation right now. Okay, so this is not a matter of, we can't be blaming anybody. Yes, what kind of recession are we facing? It's going to be very bad. It's already bad, actually. Okay, and it's affecting everybody. The world economy, not just Nigeria, not just Africa. Okay, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, IMF, they've given different estimates of the loss in GDP growth, the productivity loss that we're going to encounter. And that is going to take about 10 years to recover from this. I mean, the global GDP. So we're losing up to 5% for some countries. For us in Nigeria, I don't know what it's going to be, but it may be like more than 7%. Okay, so this is a global problem, and we cannot just begin to blame anybody.
Look at this. You talked about the Bloomberg materials report. You got about 25 million people are out of jobs in the US, and let's assume 25 million. But by my record this morning, I got 30 million. Look at this, that a government that is ready to cater for 30 million jobless people in the US and gives them benefit insurance, employment insurance every week of minimum of $600 every week. that you don't have a job at all, you're out of job, and you can go home every week with $600. That means such economy has been ready, is ready, and will forever be ready for unemployment situation or crisis as we speak. Let's take this back home. Nigerian economy. The palliative that was given, people claim I didn't get 1,000. Some people claim I never got 5,000. People claim I never got 20,000. And so many stories around the palliative. How ready is the green, white, green economy for this recession?
No, please repeat your last question.
Okay. How ready are they for this recession? If the $310 million that was given back to the government from the Abacha loot, the spokesman said the money has already been allocated, while other Nigerians are already jubilating that definitely the money will go around. But that money has been allocated even before the money came. How ready are we to prepare for recession? How ready are we to tidy up the economy? And how ready are we to make sure
Bimbo, you are speaking to me as if I am a government official. I am not. Okay, I cannot be speaking for the government.
I know you are not.
So this is the question.
You
You are asking me a question. You should be directing to the CBN governor. I am not a CBN governor. I am nobody in Nigeria. I'm just an ordinary citizen, suffering like everybody else, suffering and smiling. All right. So I'm also thinking about how I make it out of this situation. Okay. I've got friends who have been laid off, and I'm concerned about them. I've got so many, I'm a typical Nigerian. So I have the dependency ratio. People who depend on me to live, there are just so many. And the same applies to every ordinary Nigerian. The dependency burden is huge. Okay, so we are the ones, America has social security. We are the social security for our people. You are the social security for your people. That is where we find ourselves. Okay, so now you're asking me, are we ready? Are we not ready? The same age-old question that we've been asking since we were born. We made a bad system, and we thought that it could have been better, somehow it could have been fixed by now. It hasn't been fixed, okay? The government and all of that, we know what the government is. We know the level of competency in government. We know everything. So what else am I going to be talking about? Of course, there is no buffer. Of course, Nigeria cannot take care of anybody. Okay, now the CBN stepped in the other day to tell banks not to lay off anybody. I agree with the CBN, but then you just don't tell the banks not to lay off anybody when they are not doing any business. Are you going to help them pick the weight pew? I have been talking about this even before then. The first week I had a webinar, okay, with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. One of the things I told them, now is the time to begin to mobilize, both private sector and public sector, get the government people involved. Let's get a negotiation table to, first of all, discuss on how to protect jobs, because that is very critical if we are going to, if the recession is going to be short-lived. If we have massive layoffs, then we're going to have a protracted recession that may lead to a depression. So in the beginning, that was the earlier in April. If we had started that discussion, I had expected the CBN to call a meeting or kind of a roundtable of organized private sector. Get these people to the table. Let us see, what concession do you need? What can we do? Okay, everybody, and then every worker, the Trade Union Congress. I also have been advising the TUC. Okay, so I contributed to the policy brief they published in the papers the other day. Right? So I spoke with them, I discussed with them, they sent me what they wrote, I put it together for them. Free. Okay, so it wasn't a consulting brief because I know the situation everybody's in. So I saw that as part of what I could contribute. So what was the recommendation? Let the TUC, the Nigerian Labour Congress, ASU, all the trade unions, labor unions, professional groups, Nigeria Economic Summit Group, all the members, organized private sector, meet with the CBN, with the public sector. Let us agree on the palliative and how to administer it. But then what do we get? You see someone, the lady minister of whatever, carrying Ghana must go bags of money and then handing it over to people, as if, so something that is completely an eyesore. Right? So that's not the kind of palliative that works. So I don't want to go into all that because it's very annoying. It's very annoying because I know that the situation we are ending up in now could have been arrested if they took the advice that we gave them in the beginning. Call for a meeting, call for a truce. So you do not just order banks around not to sack workers okay, during the last webinar that we have with the LBS, I came up with this. Now somebody asked me the question. I'm in manufacturing. That's the person's words now. Even before this pandemic, I've not been making profit. I've been managing to keep my workers. Now that everything has dissipated and evaporated, what do I expect him to do? Why would I ask him not to lay off workers? What is he going to do? Like himself, he doesn't even have salary. So these are the kind of situations we find. And that's where the government, if they don't have the buffers, if they don't have anything to give, at least you had expected them to show that they are concerned about ordinary people. It's not about talking from the top, giving orders. So that is the way I see the situation. And please, Bimbo, don't ask me questions about government. I'm not a government person. I'm not a CBN. I'm not a minister. I'm nobody. Please.
You are somebody, Prof. You are somebody. Let me ask you this, and I'm still going to ask you this. This might not. This is not about the government, but there's no way we can talk about economics without talking about the government, But I will try to make it very soft and light. The palliative that was shared, I saw it on social media where the two Ghana must go and was distributing money to people on the street. And a friend of mine here, saw it in New York and said, really? Is that the largest black nation on earth? I said, that's Nigeria. He said, what happened to the banking system? That singular act, let me ask you, that singular act, is it not a shame to the banking sector? What happened to the BVN?
Bimbo, you need to speak to that small woman doing that stuff. It's a shame. And to think that such people, okay, are manning their affairs in a country such as this is a disgrace to humanity. Okay? I don't want to talk about that because talking about it, drives me to rage. I don't want to speak to it.
When I saw that and I looked at the vice president economic team, the caliber of people in that team, I looked at the SEC, and I said,
yeah, but there's a history behind it. By the way, the vice president was going around in 2018 distributing money to traders, 10,000 naira. What did you call that? Trader money. It's the same philosophy.
I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go, but let me quickly say this: that on Saturday, I'm gonna have a section with you, and the section will be looking at Chinese invasion of Chinese in African economy. Please.
Okay, yeah, that's something I have interest in. Before that, yes, I would like you to go read. You should read I did two series. A series on that on my column last year, which I called. Well, I don't want to use that. It's a kind of controversial, but you can Google it. You find it online on the Chinese business in Africa and their strategy.
So I'm going to talk with you on that probably on Saturday. I'm going to also make a banner and put it online so people can also join us. One thing I'm also aware, because by the virtue of how I got into the US and my experience with United Nations, you know, I got few materials about how the AU building in Africa was also bugged, you know, built by Chinese and all of that, you know. I also got materials about how the Chinese investors also got into the politics of some African countries and became a commissioner and all of that, you know, and that bothers me so much that the exposure of the Chinese is coming out rapidly now. People are beginning to know what exactly has been the agenda, you know, for the Chinese people in that region. You know, some even argue that the Chinese, with the billion of population that they have, what they a gray areas, a gray land like Africa, where they can exploit and also take back and moving back to their region. So all of these theories flying around, which I do not want to have a conclusion on it right now, but I just want to say that I want to discuss comprehensively with you on the invasion of Chinese in Africa, probably on Saturday. It's going to be a series. Maybe we can do it on Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, and all of that. So, Prof, I want to say a very big thank you to you for creating time out. You are always a saver. You know, whenever we are down, you know, you always come on board to charge us up, you know, and tell us it's going to be better. One thing I've never heard from you, that you said today, even in the class, you never said it, but you said today, you said you are not a professor of doom. And I'm beginning to wonder when economics professors say that, then it scares me, you know, because we know that economics are fact and figures people. But when they want to go under the umbrella of not a prophet of doom, it scares me that there is a big calamity coming, you know, but it's okay. It's okay, Prof. A very big thank you to you for creating time out to be here.
All
And
right,
I'm going
thank
to
you
be
very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to be joining you tomorrow on the agricultural. Can you, in 1 minute, can you talk about it again so that people can also know more about it? Tell us the time. Tell us what it takes to be part of it. Tell us the benefit as an entrepreneur to join the conference and all of that. Please tell us in 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, the Lagos Business School, over the past 10 years, actually, was part of the, what you call the African Association of Business Schools. That was the beginning of the, you know, this the focus on agriculture and agribusiness. Because it was discovered that Africans, you know, never considered agriculture as serious business. So the Business Association of Business Schools in Africa came together to design a program which they call Agribusiness Management Program, AgMP. So, which is about bringing business principles into agriculture and bringing up entrepreneurs or anyone who wants to go into agriculture, giving them the right skills, and then, you know, exposing them to the risk in agriculture and the possible mitigating strategies. So it's both a theoretical course as well as